Neville Darrell, the Shadow Education Minister, argues while it is regrettable that the Ministry of Education and the Bermuda Union of Teachers are at odds over the protocols and how the Terra Nova test is administered, there is a larger issue which is not being addressed: the issue of what is being measured and how what is measured is similar over time. One only has to look at the 1996 report on education, when the California Achievement Test was the yardstick being used to measure the performances of public school students. This to see how the more things change in the public school system, the more they stay the same.
I looked at the test scores, even though the format was slightly different. The scores were not very different from the scores that we had been receiving with the Terra Nova test, which we put in place in 2000. So in real terms, I made the statement at that point, and was not challenged, that in real terms, the public education system has been performing in the same way, in a very predictable and systemic way, for all these years. There have not been any substantial gains made in terms of educational profiles over the last several years.
Mr. Darrell believes we need to measure students' performance, but in a way which ensures the presence of structural processes which build greater capacities for success in the public school system.
There's a need to pursue teacher licensing and certification. There's a need to put in place teacher effectiveness tests to sort of get a measure of teacher effectiveness in the classroom, to also measure the overall performance of a school, to see how that school is performing, whether it has the resources it needs to bring about the success.
Further to this, the Shadow Minister contends the categories of school must also be looked at in order to forecast what resources will be required in transitioning from one level to the next.
Say, for instance, coming from primary school into middle, and said middle has great challenges. What kind of resources do you need to build in there? Particularly, that's when the scores really start to flatten and start to fall off when you get to the middle school levels. What do you need to do what do you need to put into those levels to ensure that you're building greater capacities for academic success throughout? That's why I've been talking about these diagnostic tools in and of themselves. Together, they are a systems approach that should have the benefit of creating greater levels of success and heightened performance in the public school system.
Mr. Darrell expressing the hope that these issues will be considered, whatever the yardstick used to measure the performances of public school students in the future.